the approval of the October 13 minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Everybody please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Next, claims. What do you have? Do you want to call to our particular attention, Nick?
Nothing too exciting unless you guys have specific questions about anything.
Romine Construction is,
That was the group that was helping us with the seeding and the burn down of the grass that we got permission to do last month at the board
Okay.
meeting. And then we have, is that 3 loads of jet?
Oh, excuse
Three.
me, three, yes.
We have 3 loads of jet fuel from Ascent Aviation totaling $35,898.80. And I think that's the only special claim. Yep.
I make a motion to accept the claims as presented, especially the city aviation for $35,898.80.
I'll second that.
been moved and seconded to approve the claims as indicated. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. You're getting a copy of the claim form and a copy of the minutes, Gene, for you to sign as they're heading down there.
Use your pen. I must have left mine in the car.
And we are now ready for the engineer's report. Mary?
Hello, everyone. I apologize for not being there. I don't know if Nick informed you. I'm awaiting a COVID test. I believe it will be coming back negative because I have signs for strep throat now that I have waited a little bit longer, but still out of abundance of caution, I'm staying away from everyone, even if it is strep. I don't want anyone to get that. So first up, the runway rehab. For those that haven't been able to get out to the airport, pulverization, fine grading, and paving are complete. And currently they are working on pavement markings and electrical modifications. And we are tentatively scheduled for November 20th for the final inspection at 10:30 a.m. at the airport. If any board members would like to attend, you're more than welcome to join us. I sent a calendar appointment to Nick, and he can just let him know, and he can forward that on to you. First up for board approval for the runway is the approval of change order number 2 in the amount of a deduct of $4,157.15. This change order includes additional work for cement stabilization, subgrade drying, and it also deducts some final quantities that we knew of. So just to go into further information about the cement stabilization and subgrade drying. So when this project was designed, again, we were not the designers, but there was some undistributed quantity for any unsuitable soils that we may run into, and there's obviously some assumptions that are made when you have a geotech report and everything. When we did the calculations, if we were to use the quantity that was in the plans, and we would have blown through that quantity, and we would have had to add additional quantity to that. The amount of the change would have been let me pull it up really fast, $189,000 to do contract bid items for that work. So because we had the pulverization equipment on site, we were able to not have a mobilization fee for the cement stabilization equipment. So that amount was $99,373 for that cement stabilization. So significantly below the contract bid items. So that is why we went with cement stabilization as opposed to the contract bid items for that amount. So to continue, we do anticipate a grant amendment that will be needed for this project. And grant amendments basically are when you go over the allotted amount that is in the grant. So we currently are finalizing construction, as I mentioned above. So until we know what the final dollar amount for the construction items are, we won't know what the grant amendment would be. But as I kind of mentioned in the agenda, the FAA would participate in 90% of that grant amendment. Unfortunately, NDOT does not participate, so the airport would have to cover 10% of that grant amendment. So hypothetically speaking, if that grant amendment was $100,000, the airport would have to pick up $10,000 of that. And I know that's kind of getting more ahead of ourselves since we don't even know what that grant amendment amount is, but I just wanted full disclosure while we were discussing this change order, since this change order does affect some of those quantities. It is a deduct right now, but we do anticipate the final balancing change order could be an increase.
Okay. Any questions about the change order, gentlemen? That makes sense? So you'll need a motion to approve that change order, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'll make the motion to approve change order number 2 for Finn and Brown in the amount of $4,157.15 deduct.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve change order number 2. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carried. Okay,
So
next item.
So next item is Finn and Brown, the contractor for this project. Their pay request number 2 in the amount of $1,028,753.30. We have reviewed this change order and we find it all in good standing. This does not include any of the quantity changes that you guys just approved with change order number 2. These were all of the quantities that they are asking for payment on were part of the original contract or change order number 1.
So this is nothing more than, gee, they've been doing work, they'd like to get paid for it.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is all within budget for the grant amendment as well, or grant application.
I make the motion to pay Finn and Brown in pay request number 2 for $1,028,753.30. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve pay request number 2 from Fend and Brown. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Have to sign anything on that? Okay. And your third action item appears to be an invoice from you. Is that correct, Mary?
Yep, that's why I decided to stay home today, guys. I just wanted to not be in the room when I asked for all the money. Yes, this is for our invoice. This is within our budget. It's for $112,000, $439.57. And that is within our budget, and Yeah, I can entertain any questions you may have. It's basically the work that we did for bidding the project. We also had time in there for the review of the previous consultant's work and all the construction, administration, and inspection work as well.
Mary, we're always willing to spend money when we get value for our money. But this is, you mentioned that last thing, which is having to kind of coordinate with the previous consultant's activity. This is our one big project where there's kind of a fair amount of, I don't know how to use the word overlap, but a necessary coordination between two different engineers. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And we won't have to deal with that very much in the future.
Correct.
Okay.
I move that we approve the CHA's invoice number 1 for the amount of $112,439.57.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Okay, that's all for the runway project, right?
Yep. Unless anyone has any questions for me on the runway.
Okay, now off to power lines. Fire away.
Yes. So the FAA has asked us to put together the grant application. As you all know, we are still awaiting feedback on the CIAC gross-up tax. So what the FAA has proposed, we had suggested it to them, and they went to their higher-ups and said that it was amenable to them, is that we submit the grant application with the federal portion of the CIAC gross-up tax. If you'll remember, we were able to get the state portion removed, and we will have that in the grant application as its own miscellaneous column. So then if we do hear back from legal that that tax is not applicable to the airport, then it can be removed from the grant amount pretty easily by the FAA. So they will entertain a grant application with the current tax in there, with the caveat of knowing that in the future, if it needs to be removed, it can be. So I have, as you'll see in the agenda, it broken down what AEP's portion is, what CHA's portion is, and there was also an independent fee evaluation, which is basically another consultant that does a cost estimate and their portion, and says that our portion of that amount is within budget, and so that is where that 3,500 number comes into play. And then below that, I have the actual grant application amount, and it's broken down by federal, local, and state there as well.
Okay, now, either Mary or Nick explain this to us when we get to this local portion of 379,821. Where's that local portion coming from?
From depreciation.
Okay.
And then we will get creative on the rest of it.
Okay,
We'll find the money.
okay, you're confident we will, because we want to,
You've worked
I
this
sense
hard.
this
We
is
got
a
us.
nice,
We got
nice
us here.
step here
Yep.
to approve this,
Yep.
so.
This doesn't mean that we have the grant yet. I mean, the FAA has said that we have the money sitting there, but this is just for the application of everything.
Sure.
Well,
And this was thanks to Dan's suggestion last month of let's lock the price in place. That way, if cost goes up next year, we've already got the contract signed. We don't have to worry about another cost increase. Once this contract with AEP is signed, that's it. That's we know what that price is going to be, unless we can get that CIAC tax removed. We are, as Mary said, and she's got it later in her engineer's report as well. I've been going back and forth with Taft Law Firm. The biggest issue so far, and I think I said this last month, there is no case law regarding this tax. It's never been tried in court. So we're having to, instead of looking for precedent, we're having to look at different avenues to try and get our answer. And it's just it's a lot more time consuming than we had originally planned. So that's where we are with that. And then I saw Gene look at me with the independent fee evaluation. We've already taken care of that. That is where I contact a third-party engineering firm, submit all of the documents to them. They look everything over just to make sure CHA is staying honest with us. They will give their opinion of cost of what it would take on CHA's part or the project to make sure that all the numbers are jiving and we're not paying one company too much. So we have already paid that out of this year's professional services line item, but when we receive the grant, it will be part of our reimbursement. We will get 90% of that back, and then 5% from state, so.
I have a question.
Yep.
How's come the grant application total is less than AEP's number, and then we still have CHA on top of that? Am I misunderstanding something?
Well, the difference between the 7617 on AEP and the 7598 on the grant application?
Yes,
Let me see if I had a typo with that. Hold on
because
one second.
if AEP includes the gross up tax, okay, that's 7.6, and then CHA was 155, and independent was 35, they are not included in AEP's number. So those numbers total 7,776,511. So how do we get 7 million?
I'm sorry. I think I have that number in there. Let me do some quick math, Dan.
Okay. Just want to understand it.
Yeah.
As we will get to here in a little bit in my manager's report, we were asking Mary for a lot today, so.
So I have the wrong number in there for AEP. I apologize, Dan. So their portion is just AEP's portion, not including the gross up tax, is $6,850,833.
Could you say that again, Mary?
6850833. I apologize for that typo. I was getting these numbers finalized today.
And does that number include the tax or no?
Does not, she said.
That does not include the tax. If you include the tax, I'm doing math, it is 7439345.
And so so then when you add the CHA portion and the fee evaluation portion, those things together, plus that number you gave, should be the 7598415.
Correct.
And it is.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that typo.
Dan assures us that it is, so. Okay, very good. So but the number for the board action for the application, we know that number is right. That's not
That
where the
number is
typo
correct.
is, so.
Yep.
Okay. I move that we allow CHA to submit the grant to the FAA for the amount of $7,598,415.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Another step down the road, folks.
The only thing that I didn't mention with the obstructions is that we are continually to hold our biweekly meetings. This week's biweekly meeting will actually occur during the CIP virtual meeting that we have on the 12th. So.
Okay. And just as a side note, that is something you are planning on John and I attending virtually, correct?
That is correct. I was going to check in to make sure that you guys are still available for that.
I will be. I may bring a sandwich, but I'll be available.
So next up is the hangar door. We are somewhat on hold with our portion of it until we receive documents from Robinson, which I believe their contract was signed, was it on Friday, Nick?
The contract was not signed, it was approved by Board of Works, and we are drawing up the contract with the city attorney. Once he has finished getting that contract ready, Robinson will fill out what they need to fill out, and we'll get the board signature on that. But that's gonna be one of the things, well, that's next in unfinished business, is the lease needs to be approved and signed by the board as well, so.
Okay. So the only action that I have for that is our invoice number 1 for that for $14,477.20 out of our $30,000 budget.
I make the motion to pay CHA's invoice number 1 for $14,477.20.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve CHA invoice number 1. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Okay, anything else, Mary?
Yeah, just the CIP meetings, which we already discussed. We did have a meeting with John, Jay, and Nick last week, and if any board members want to discuss that more, just feel free to reach out to them. We'll have more information on that after the meeting on the 12th.
Are you setting that up?
Do they need to sign it?
Nick, am I coming out to the airport for that?
You sure can.
Okay.
That's what I'm planning on doing.
Are you? Okay.
So it sounds like the discussions that they're having with the FAA and AEP are going along.
Yeah, they're going really well, and I'm sitting on those as well. We brought, like I said, Mary, was it last month we had our board meeting, and it was that following Thursday that we had our meeting, and we brought up the idea to Victor, hey, let's go ahead and process this grant, get a contract signed with AEP. That way, if we do tick over into next year, the contract's at least signed so we don't have that increase of cost, correct?
Yes, I believe that was the timeline. Mhm.
And so he took it to the region, explained what was going on. They said, absolutely.
Great.
And then they said, they were the ones that said, let's make the CIAC tax a line item. That way, if it is determined it is not applicable in this sense, we can just X that one line item right out. If it is determined that it is applicable, we don't have to go through and do a grant amendment. It's already in there. It's easier to take money away and give it back than it is to ask for a $600,000 increase after the fact, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Smart idea, Dan.
Yeah.
Oh, and the guy
I'm
at
just tired of
Taflow.
the aviation board chasing its tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
30 years of chasing its tail.
The guy at Taflow, tell him my experience is that when I've got a legal problem in which there is no precedent that says I'm wrong, my position is that I'm right. And he doesn't need to look, if there's no precedent that says he's wrong, or she says, well, let's just
Say we're right.
decide we're right
Okay.
and push it, so,
That'll work. I'll let him know.
okay. Anything else for the engineer, folks?
Nope.
Okay, well, Mary, I hope you are feeling better and/or get better and don't have anything that you will have to quarantine over.
I hope that's the case too, especially since we can't send my daughter to daycare right now. That's a little frustrating,
Sure.
to say the least.
Absolutely. Okay. Anything else for us, Mary?
I'm good. I'll stay on the line for the rest of the meeting if anyone needs me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Nick, manager's report. What do you got for us?
Fuel usage report, pretty standard for the year. Unless you guys have questions on fuel usage or income, the one thing that I will note with the income statement, we do have $69,000 of CARES Act money that will be coming in that the FAA gave. So all airports nationwide received certain amounts depending on the size of your airport and your operations. Warsaw was 69,000. That grant paperwork is finished and we're finalizing getting that money to be able to put back into our general fund. So hopefully by next month's meeting, we will have all of that taken care of. And then that will be, we're just using it for payroll. There were several different things that we could use it for. It was easiest just to put it into our 206 fund to help offset the loss of fuel sales this year. And then we will be using that for helping to cover payroll and other expenses that go along with that from health insurance, Medicare, all that kind of stuff, so.
Nick, on our fuel report, traditionally, we have broken down as our, kind of individual larger customers to keep track of their jet
Correct.
sale.
Yep.
And I noticed in reviewing those things for the year that we have a couple customers that have not bought anything this year. Are they off the chart when it comes to flying in and out of this airport?
Not necessarily. Are you talking about CTB?
I'm talking about Tree of Life, I'm talking about CTV.
CTB does not have a jet at Warsaw right now. They did in years past. That is why they're still located or included in there. Before COVID, they were still flying in and out every now and then, not very often. At the beginning of COVID, Tree of Life sold their jet. They currently have not replaced that with another aircraft. They still are a tenant and own a share of a hangar at the airport, so they are still in there as a customer, but they do not currently have a jet to be buying jet fuel for.
Does CTV still have a jet?
Yes, but it is not located at Warsaw anymore. They were leasing space from Image Air Charter Company, and they have since moved their operation up to Goshen.
Okay, and is that something that discussions with them and talks about their needs is going to, is there a way to modify that, I guess, is my question?
Bring them back?
Yes,
Possibly.
okay.
I would not hold your breath. Their pilots live in Goshen, so it's more convenient for them. But they do still operate in and out of Warsaw, and that is something that we can look at the beginning of the year.
Okay, well, if we need, want to have a nice conversation with them, tell them how much we miss them, I wouldn't mind, I'd be willing to have that conversation with whoever needs to have, to be talked to,
Can do.
so. Because again, you don't know whether that's going to turn around short term, but we want to keep them thinking about it in case that changes down the road.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions about the fuel usage report? Okay, income statement.
As I said, outside of that, and I just went out of it. Please note that, so at the end of the year, we won't be as bad, but there will be that $69,000 that will be going into back into 206 once we receive those FAA funds. Unless there's
Okay.
specific questions on that, we can move into unfinished business.
Anything else on the income statement? Okay, fire away, Nick.
Okay, so first things, Zimmer Biomet lease. We finally come to an agreement with Zimmer. We've got the lease hammered out. It is very similar to our normal lease that all of our tenants sign. There were just a couple changes that needed to be made since this is an airport-owned hangar that someone is renting from us. We have finished those negotiations and Zimmer has approved this lease. It is in your board pack if you would like to look at it in there. And then I've also got I've got 2 copies for the board to sign here. So if you guys approve that lease, that would be for $5,000 a month starting November 2020. And then that would continue through the end of December 2025 with one option to renew at a new rate at the end of 2025. We will take a look at the CPI and then make a rate adjustment according to that CPI, the Consumer Price Index. If it has gone up, then we will adjust up. If it has gone down, then the lease payment will stay the same. And then that would be for an additional 5 years through December of 2030.
All right, the adjustment won't take place during this 5-year period, it's potentially there for the next
It
5-year
would be for the
period.
second
Got it.
5-year period, correct. And this, as I said, this has gone through Zimmer's legal department and their commercial real estate departments, and then the city attorney has also gone over this and said that everything looks good.
Do we have an Exhibit A? I've never,
I don't
It
have
should
it.
be, it should be in,
there's an Exhibit B in there, but there's no Exhibit A.
the exhibit A is just an overhead drawing of the hangar and what their space is, and I forgot to attach that as a PDF into the file. But that is what exhibit A is this is the hangar and its location at the airport. And it is an exhibit B.
I was gonna say, that what you're
It's-
talking about is part of Exhibit B now.
It is a
isn't
part of exhibit B, but it is a separate standalone document
Yeah.
for exhibit A.
Okay.
It's part of ours, so.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just for a little clarification, not that it's a big deal, but a couple of typos I found.
The dates,
No. In section 12, item 5,
Article 12,
Article 12, item 5, I think that should be lessor shall not be responsible.
okay?
I'm just a stickler on these type of things, so, sorry.
No kidding.
And then article number 6, right below that,
Section 6, okay?
it's down towards the bottom where it says lessee is agreed, it should say lessee agrees to reimburse, not agree,
Okay,
that's it.
all right, I will
I
make sure
just-
that I make those
No
changes.
big deal, I just like to make sure contract is properly worded.
Well, I can speak for the rest of the board, we're darn impressed by you reading it with such detail. Good for you.
Do we have a
Do I have
motion?
a motion to approve it?
I move that we approve this contract with the listed changes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the Zimmer Bioma hangar lease. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Motion carried.
The,
Signature pages are coming down to you, gentlemen.
the only other thing that we would need with that is authorization for Jay to sign the contract with Robinson Construction. Once that is, we know the bid, or the contract amount was $644,262. I did take that to the Board of Works, and it was approved on 11/6 of 2020. Since the city is helping us with some of that cost. So if I
We
could
we
get-
didn't approve the bid already?
we approved the bid, but to give you the authority to sign the contract.
Okay.
Once everything is done, do we need a second? I would think we would need an approval for Jay to sign that contract, and then for me to take it to Board of Works to sign as well, correct?
Well, I think if the board approves the contract, I've got authority to sign the contract,
Okay,
so. Because I'm just doing what the board tells me to do, but
'Cause
if the
we
board
just
has
did-
approved it, then I'm representing the board, so.
so then we would need an approval for you to,
Contract, yeah.
once that has been written. So do you want to wait for that to be written before you approve it? Since we know what the bid, or the amount is going to be?
No, I think we can approve the contract, we know what the amount's gonna be, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
What time,
You're good. No, move and approve the contract with Robinson Construction.
Okay. I move that we approve the contract to Robinson Construction for the amount.
Yeah.
I second that.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
One abstention. Any nays? I don't hear any negative votes, so motion carried. There you go.
Thank you, thank you. All righty, we'll get that taken care of.
And I
Next.
see hangar 24 modification request on the agenda.
Correct. As you see attached, last month, Hangar 24 was sold, and they would like to install a septic system so that they can have a restroom out at their hangar. Several hangars at the airport have their own septic systems. It is in their lease that they are allowed to do that. They have to maintain, pay for all of the maintenance, removals, any bills or anything pertaining to. This would just be a modification so that when, if you approve this, we would update their Exhibit A to show their new overhead with that space allocated for their septic tank. They will not be having a center floor drain. It's just going to be one commode and one sink for washing hands. So a oil water separator is not required by the city building planning, or the city building department. And so they will get all of the normal state and local permits through the city, the county, and the state. And they are proposing, as you see in your documents there, a location directly behind their hangar. It will have no impact on future airport projects that we have anywhere in our ALP, and I would support this 100%.
Do you get copies or maintain copies of their permits?
We do not. The city and the county would have those through the building department, and then we just maintain the lease and the overheads.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because obviously I'm not saying anything about these folks, but just to confirm that, and I take a look at them, just to confirm that they in fact have gone through the proper channels to get a septic system out there, because you wouldn't want somebody putting one in out there who maybe I get the right permits, and then
Yep.
they walk away from us several years from now, and well, we gotta fix it.
Yeah.
I can say that in my tenure, I have seen the permits for, this will be the second one installed. There is a joint septic system for two of the hangars that were built a few years back. And I did see all of those permits. They went through the city, they went through the county, and those were all correct. I can't speak to anything before, but I can start looking them up and see if I can find all of those.
Just curious, I'd rather be proactive and make sure that there's nobody sitting out there that has inadvertently done something they shouldn't have done, which could potentially leave us holding the bag.
Gotcha. See what we can do.
I'm kind of curious on their display, they've got behind the hangar, just exactly where they plan on putting it, because we had an A and a B.
Correct?
So is that options, or is that
So
both?
they would prefer to have it in location A, and that is actually where I would prefer it to be as well.
Well, that's the reason I asked, because that's
But-
where I would prefer it also.
Yep, but they put in the B location as an alternate if for whatever reason location A was not approved. I would prefer it in A. The main reason, if by chance there would ever be a hangar small enough that could fit south of that hangar, we can fit it in there. But because of grading and the size restrictions that would be on that hangar, it would be very, very difficult to install a hangar south of where that hangar currently is located. And so to protect us in the future, A is the best location, but they just threw in B. So I would recommend, thank you for bringing that up, approving it in location A.
Okay, yeah, well, that's exactly what I was thinking too, leave that land open
Yeah.
for other purposes.
Okay. So is that a motion to approve the adjustment requested at location A pursuant to their?
So moved.
Second.
Any further septic system discussion?
Is this Marshall's former hangar?
Correct, yep.
No further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, motion carried.
The last thing that I have for the board tonight is a last-minute request. We have had some pavement fail in the last couple weeks on our east-west taxiway Alpha. We have approximately 35 cracks that have gone from 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch wide that we were originally planning to crack seal this fall. Because of the spring freeze thaws that we had and then some of the rains that we have had over the summer, Those cracks have widened, some of them upwards of 2.5 to 3 inches, and they are full depth cracks to where they are starting to sink. So we are going to have to go in and do a full depth repair on those cracks. I I sent an email to both Fendon Brown and to Reith Riley, who were plan holders for our runway project, to ask if they would send us a sealed quote on what it would take to repair those cracks. Fendon Brown was the only responsive party that gave us a quote. Those were due at noon today. And so I would request that the board declare an emergency, and if you do declare the emergency, that we open this sealed quote at the meeting tonight and then base an award on those numbers provided to us to get those cracks repaired before the winter hits this year. I do not think that the pavement will last through the winter with as bad as it's gotten in the last 6 weeks.
And we can declare the emergency. That authorizes us to open and look at it. Does not require us to accept till we've actually looked at the bid,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
The quote.
I move we declare the emergency.
Need a second?
Yep.
It's there.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I just want to say that I did go out previous to Nick getting the NDOT guy up, and he showed me the cracks, and I was surprised at how large they'd gotten also.
Yeah.
We had just crack sealed the south side of that taxiway last fall, and the cracks were small enough that we couldn't crack seal last fall, and so that's why we had planned on doing it this year. And even Mary and NDOT and everybody, it's unbelievable how fast they've opened up. So we need to get them fixed sooner rather than
Yeah,
later.
it took me out when we were watching the runway construction. It took me over and showed me to my Lincoln's eye. It was pretty significant.
So Mayor doesn't have any doubts. Dan, you don't have any doubts we need to
No.
deal with this right away, do you?
No, it's,
Oh, yeah, because I'd seen them too, so that's
Yeah,
why.
yeah.
I was quite surprised at how bad it had gotten.
Yeah.
Well, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried.
Can you remind me why you need the emergency order?
Because otherwise we would need, talking with Mary and others, we're guessing this is gonna be between 70 and 100,000. Normally, we'd need to do a formal quote process and everything.
I thought you did that.
We solicited 2 quotes, but because it's the end of the year, we've got to get this done as fast as possible. And instead of the normal advertising period and everything else, we solicited quotes from 2 known contractors that have good reputation in the area to do this work. And
Assuming it would be emergency.
correct,
Okay.
yep. And I talked with James.
So they weren't bids, I was misunderstanding.
Correct, they are not bids, these are quotes.
Yep.
Okay, I've opened up the quotes, and they've given us a base quote and an alternate quote. One says asphalt patching with FAA P401 base, and the other one says asphalt patching with NDOT 402 base.
Correct.
And I assume those 2 differences mean something to you.
They do. We asked for both numbers. The FAA P401 is the FAA spec for asphalt. It is a lot more expensive than the NDOT, is it P403?
P402.
P402. And because of that, we asked for both. If this was an FAA-funded project, then we would need to use P401 because we are paying for this with our local funds. We don't have to. If the cost is close enough, I think it would be smart to, but if it is a substantial cost savings, then we can look at the 402.
Well, it's a minimal difference because the FAA P401 quote is 76,930 and the 402 base is 72,555. So it's only a $4,000 and change difference between the 2.
Is there any difference in the quality of what we get?
Mary, I'll let you answer that. From my understanding, it comes down to how tight the tolerances are when you're making the asphalt as far as the aggregate size, what type of, or how much
Yeah,
sand.
the FAA mix, it has some smaller aggregates in it than the NDOT mix.
So it could potentially
The
last
amount of
longer
difference
and be
between them, I thought
tighter.
there would be more. Knowing that it is Fendon Brown who is the one that provided the quote, they have the mixed designs that they have used for the runway already established, which would be the same. So it is not. I'm not surprised that there is not that big of a difference between them, since they have been working on the runway and have those mixed designs already established.
And Mary, with a difference of less than $5,000, would it be your opinion to go with the FAA standard?
If it is within the board's budget, I would go with the FAA standard, yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question. If we use the NDOT spec instead of the FAA spec, will that negatively impact us in the future on the rehabilitation with requests with the FAA for the taxiway and runway stuff, work in the future grants?
That's a good question, because I asked the same thing. I think Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, if we use did you hear Dan's question?
I heard part of it, not all of it.
If we use the NDOT spec, will that negatively affect any applications to rehabilitate that taxiway in the future?
No.
But for $4,000, I think it would be wise to absolutely go with the FAA spec. The main difference is how much weight those tires are carrying in pounds per square inch versus a truck tire. And that right there is the main difference. Aircraft have a lot smaller area that they are distributing that weight. And so in summer months, specifically when it's really warm, you want as strong of asphalt out there. And that's where that FAA spec just makes that little bit better.
Is there any difference in how well one holds up over the other one?
Mary, I can't answer that. Mary, John asked if there was any difference in how well one holds up versus the other.
In this application, I would assume that the FAA spec would perform slightly better. I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference, personally. We do also intend on, in the future, we would like to do a mill and overlay of this taxiway. So I don't see this being a fix that is going to be there for 20 years. I would assume that, it may be 5 or 10 years before we could do a mill and overlay on that. So if that could be an argument for having it as the NDOT mix instead of the FAA mix, since it is the intent to try and mill and overlay that in the more recent future.
And if I can add one more thing and play devil's advocate to that, Mary, the FAA mix, because it is a smaller aggregate than the NDOT mix, it will go in and fill, because it's not just a mill and overlay and a smooth surface, it is going into a crack. The smaller aggregate will fill those cracks a little bit better, and it will be a little bit of a tighter bond. Negligible, yes, but it's just one more thing to think about over this project. It will, think of it as it will self-level a little bit better than the NDOT mix would. So again, negligible, but it is something to at least note.
Okay, are you comfortable that we can pay for this?
Yes, yep, we had about 170,000 set aside for both the runway project, 90,000 for the runway project, and then about 80,000 for runway repair or crack repair. Since we are not paying that 90,000 towards the runway project, it was covered because of COVID or the CARES Act money. We have more than enough in that to cover this.
Okay, I move we accept the bid for, hope I pronounce this right, Fend and Brown,
Yep.
for the FAA spec for the $76,930.
Second.
Do I hear a second? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. And I have just signed it.
And that's all I have, unless the board has
Okay.
any other questions.
I do.
Go ahead, Dan.
First, a comment, and I just will publicly say that Finn and Brown has performed very well.
Yeah.
Very well. So this is good. And then the other thing, I wanted to just get an update. You were waiting, last time I asked you, you were waiting for the service guy to come back on his normal rotation in regards to the ILS thing. Has he since been back, or are we still waiting for him?
He has been back. We are waiting on cost estimates to make, there's actual crystals that need to be made for the glide slope for it to become operational. And there's only one company that makes those for that system. It is so old, and we just do not have a quote from that company to know what it is going to cost us to have those installed yet.
Did they have any ballpark guesses?
They really don't. I'm guessing it's probably gonna be about 30,000. I'm not holding my breath that we will get those in 2020. I would like for them to be in, but that is something that I don't know that we will have before the end of this year. We're still trying for it, but I can't answer that question right now.
Okay.
One of the things we talked about, Dan, at the CIP meeting was trying to deal with some of these tech issues. So we were ahead of the curve as opposed to be trailing the curve in terms of technology. So I don't know what that means, but I just wanted to share that with you. We talked about it at CIP meeting with Mary and the folks at CHA. So
Okay.
any other questions or comments for the good of the order?
Nope.
Okay, then we are at the conclusion of our meeting tonight, and the next meeting of the Board of Aviation Commissioners of the State of Warsaw will be on December 8th at 5:15. Until then, have a wonderful time, stay well, and enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, everyone. Sorry I
Thank you.
couldn't be there in person. See
That's
you in
okay.
December.
Yep.
Take care of yourself.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.